Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all between the binary. This is Get Informed with Wajeeh. I'm Wajeeh Lion. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you coming. If you missed my first shirt collection, then I want to let you know that I'm working on a different collection this time. This time, the collection is regarding our grassroots movement, that it is the ultra rich versus the poor. It is the politicians that divide us, and we're the ones paying the price. So very heavy shirt that's worth your time and effort and money to get something like that. But I'm working with them. But in the meantime, I just dropped the hats. You guys have been wanting hats. I've dropped all types of hats, naturally made hats, cotton hat, uh, UV protection hats, beanies for the lesbies. You got it all. So, and for the winter, of course, for the beanies. But the the hats needed an extra minute to work on because the designers didn't want to finish it up quickly, which is fine. I would rather have it done correctly than not done correctly. I'm still looking for someone to source out the um uh tattoos, but we're working on stuff one step at a time. But your support is amazing. Thank you so much for grabbing merch. It represents the channel, also makes a difference, and invites people to join us. And you're showing that you're part of the community. So much appreciated. And stickers. Stickers, maybe we talked to Greg about that. Maybe he can help me with the stickers. We can do maybe stickers giveaway, or yeah, stickers giveaway. Otherwise, interesting fact for you: His Majesty, our Supreme Leader, His Royal Highness, President Donald Trump, has said that we are close to imminent peace deal 37 times. So we ended the war 37 times, guys. You have no idea. The war ended, and therefore we don't need the Congress to pass any resolutions because we ended the war 37 times. How? Don't ask me. Ask our supreme leader. He's well more informed than I am. There's a section on my profile or in the channel chat. If you want to ask your questions there, I would appreciate it. It would help me a lot in the process of finding your questions. But otherwise, I might have to bring this much closer so I could read them. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Marco Rubio want us to keep the war. The guy that's supposed to help us negotiate peace is trying to convince the president to continue the war. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs, oh, sorry, we don't have our Secretary of Foreign Affairs our Secretary of State, like we like to say in the United States, right, is literally lobbying Trump to attack Iran. So I don't know how we are supposed to end the war when the Secretary of State, the one that's supposed to be running diplomacy, is the one advocating for the war. Our most intelligent and highly skilled workers in the US government are running away. What's going on? I don't know. There is a World Cup escalation highlighting how deeply the war has poisoned all state relations. Iran Football Federation announced today that the U.S. has revoked its entire ticket allocation for its upcoming World Cup group match against New Zealand, Belgium, and Egypt to be co-hosted in the United States. Tehran blasted the bureaucratic hurdles and the visa denials for support staff and an illegal extension of the border confirmation. Essentially, we are making it very difficult for the Iranian football team that has qualified to be part of the World Cup, right? To come to the United States and play the game and leave. We're treating them like shit and we're coming out very pity. A little bit desperate as well. It's not looking good for you guys or for us. I'm part of you guys at this point. Trump peace claims while he was speaking to reporters before boarding Air Force One today, President Trump declared that the U.S. is in the final throes of a comprehensive peace deal with Iran, suggesting an agreement could be finalized in days. I think he said over the weekend, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. But this shit happened. The administration baseline demand remains 20 years freeze on enrichment and a joint allied IEA verification, which the Iranians will just not agree to. Trump is still focused on the highly enriched uranium and he's still focused on continuing this war, highly enriched uranium and the IEA, that he's forgetting the economic impact on the rest of the global economy. The market at the moment is interesting. I need to look at it here in a minute. I haven't fully looked at the market yet. Despite Trump's warnings to Prime Minister Netanyahu to halt aggression, clearing operations during the delicate Islamabad back channel talks, the IDF launched its most violent air campaign most of the month against the strategic South Lebanon coastal city of Tyre, following immediately all encompassing forced protocols that has happened against ancient Christian neighborhoods and airstrikes that killed at least 8 people and flattened multiple urban blocks, all done by Israel. Why are you so surprised that Iran is getting pissed off at this point? When Israel is taking down blocks and blocks and making Lebanon look like Gaza, which no one is okay with Gaza at the moment, why would you not think that the Iranians and the Hezbollah would not retaliate? And what would you think? And what would you make you think that Hezbollah would give up their weapons after seeing what Israel is doing there, and after and knowing that they have kicked Israel's ass in the past? This is not the first conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. And Hezbollah understand Israeli tactics and has been in conflict with Israel for a minute. They know a thing or two about fighting the Israelis. Last night, before I went to bed, my time around 12 or 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. in the morning, a U.S. helicopter fell and crashed in the Strait of Hormuz and were rescued by a ship drone, you could say, like a drone that swims. And that drone basically rescued them out of that situation. Number one, we don't know how that helicopter was downed yet. Number two, I'm thankful and grateful that all the soldiers that were on board of the helicopter were rescued, and that is a miracle on its own, especially that it was a helicopter crashing on water. A very, very dangerous situation, not easy techniques to get out of that helicopter. It takes a lot of training and effort to know what the fuck you're doing and a lot of luck. And those soldiers were rescued, thankfully, and I'm very grateful for that. But that also shows you how fragile the ceasefire is. And it just shows you that as long as we are in this conflict, we are risking the lives of our men and women who are serving this country and trying to protect it and trying to bring democracy and freedom to the rest of the world. Well, they are in a conflict that doesn't make any sense, that they don't understand, that their family doesn't understand or support, and yet they are risking their lives every day for a president that is using this opportunity to take advantage of the poly market, which is a betting market that is used to bet on the war, when the attacks will be made, who will be making them, and where. And people have made billions of dollars using that poly market. I don't know if you know this, but the Trump family, right? The immediate family of Donald Trump made $50 billion this one year alone in this Trump administration. So we have a very corrupt government. We have a very corrupt White House that is intending to waste our resources. That's very interested in watching sport games and very willing at the same time risk the life of the men and women at the battlefield for a conflict that is not resulting in any results. Previewing the fragile uh, of the maritime theater remains a U.S. military helicopter went down near the Strait of Hormuz Tuesday. All crew members were successfully rescued with no injuries reported. Those Intercommand Naval naval pickets immediately went on high alert to source the crash parameter. That was the latest update that I have about that. Trump has backed himself into a corner because of his relationship with Netanyahu. He can't get out of it now, can't he? He can choose to let go of Israel. He can. He would have to abandon Israel 100%. And I don't know if he's ready to do that. Do you think that the Greater Israel Project is why Israel will never submit to a peace plan? And do you think that they have any consideration for at all for what seems to be a noise dive for the global economy? So the Israelis don't care about the economy at the moment, and specifically Netanyahu and his administration and the far right. Um, there is a good group in Israel that um, do believe in the greater of Israel. Most of them are in the far right, but many of the soldiers who are being forced to be part of this war don't necessarily support the war. Let me explain. You have Orthodox Jews who have laws and regulations that allow them, right, not to be part of the military as long as they are in the middle of their own studies. So every Orthodox Jew in Israel that's on the far right ends up being in a study. So none of them gets deployed. But all of them want the Israeli soldiers who have just graduated from high school and tend to be very liberal and tend to be against the war and tend to have other opinions get indoctrinated forcefully into the military because that's the Israeli government laws. You have to serve in the military. And then they end up having to fight a war like this because they're not Orthodox Jew and they're not in the middle of the religious studies. So you end up having people that don't want to be part of this war end up misbehaving because there are no checks and balances and there are no oversight. And you see misbehaving, you see people viewing the other groups as less than humans. You have so many factors that plays into this that allows the Israeli military to take away people's rights or not to care about the system. And it seems like there is a permission to attack anytime they want to attack without having to ask for permission. There's always permission for the Israeli citizens even to escalate. I just saw the defense minister Ben come out and say, "Yes, I believe all Israeli citizens should be carrying guns so they could be killing the Palestinians." And if you read between the lines, this is a big issue. This is a big issue. While you're at it, destroy that heart button. I need your support. My channel needs your support. My work needs your support. I am dependent on you. Without you, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be sitting down. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be wasting 2, 3 hours of my day to do education. So take a minute, hit subscribe, hit that like button. If you can afford to become a paid subscriber, consider becoming a paid subscriber. It pays the lights. It keeps me doing what I'm doing so you don't have to do it full time. In addition, we have our merch is out and about. The t-shirts for the first drop of t-shirt has all been sold out. So if you missed it, I am sorry. But the hats are out and about. Our Pride Month merch is out and about. So make sure to grab them. And then I will have a new design coming up. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching a recording, make sure to hit subscribe, like, comment, and help that bell icon so you receive the latest updates. And then come to Substack and join our community. We have a very great community. Everyone cares about each other. Just the other day, we had a GoFundMe to help someone pay off a rent or something. We all care about helping one another. This is a community where change and difference comes from within and then to the outside. So if you feel like you are a person that wants to be a part of a difference and you are a person that wants to bring change, come join us. This is what we're trying to do. Um, so do I think there is a plan for a greater Israel? I certainly believe that there are a group of people that have a conspiracy theory of wanting to have a greater Israel, and that's the answer to that. What is the significance of cats and horses in Saudi Arabia? Are cats protected in the same or all Middle Eastern countries? And is it true that Saudi Arabia has the earliest records of horses breeding? The Arabian Peninsula, I don't like to call it Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia is a country that's only been around for about 100 years or so. But the Arabian Peninsula was the home ground for cats and for horses. And in fact, I think it's Bahrain where the Sheikh of Bahrain, like few hundred years back or before that, banned any foreign horses from coming to ensure that all the breed of horses in Bahrain are Arabian horses breed. But yes, the first horses are the Arabian horses. The largest number of Arabian horses actually is concentrated in the United States. Um, but some of the best Arabian horses training facilities are in Qatar, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia, where billions of dollars are spent on these horses to train them and uh, also do a lot of breeding as well. In terms of cats, they and horses, they both hold a very, very dear spot in the Arabian heart. Um, one of the prophet companion is called the father of pussycat because he always had baby cats around him. And he was known for being the able to recite the most of the stories of the prophet. So he was a very close friend of the prophet and he loved cats, so he was named the father of cats. And in Arabia, horses was your lifeline. It was the thing that you used to get from one place to another, but it was what, took you to battle. It is what allowed you to be an independent person back in the day. And till this day, people who ride horses are proud people. People who ride camels end up being tough people, and people who raise sheep end up being soft-hearted people. At least that's the philosophy of Arabia. And you can see that personality of the animal play a part into the human being. And Muslims believe that all prophets, in fact, I was talking to a Catholic monk once, and he asked me if I could. He asked me if he could steal that from me. So I was telling him that in Arabia, all like or in Islam, we believe that all prophets lived and raised goats and sheep, including Jesus. And that because it teaches humbleness, it teaches simplicity, it teaches love, it teaches care, it teaches a lot of different things that make someone a very humble person. And in Christian belief, the sheep or a goat has some association with heaven and God. I don't remember what it is exactly, but that was the conversation that was happening between me and the Catholic monk. He was a Catholic monk getting his PhD at Kansas State University. So I was telling him, so in Islam, we say that if you raise horses, you become proud and arrogant. And if you raise camels, you become tough and mean. Because camels are tough and mean. That's what they like. They spit on your face. They will kick you in a mean way. They will remember you as an enemy if you hurt them for the rest of your life. They have the longest memory ever. They will remember your scent, the way you look. They something. If you hurt a camel and you come 30 years later, that camel will remember you. So um, camels can be very mean animal. They're very tough animal. They're meant to withstand the harshness of the desert, and that plays on the person that's raising that camel, and it plays on their personal lifestyle. So the monk asked if he could borrow that from me, and I said, sure, yeah, you can borrow it. Um, but it's something. It's Arabian wisdom that I was taught young. So if you ever meet a horse racer, let me know if you meet someone that is humble. What is the annual demand for mineral fertilizer? I'm not sure. That's a good question for farmers, but I will look it up for you. What is the total volume for? Yeah, I'm not informed about fertilizers. I can look it up in terms of prices, but at the moment I don't have that. How much would the harvest do? I you know what? I might have to call up my friends at Kansas State University because they have one of the best economic agricultural programs in the country, if not in the world. I mean, Kansas State University has a good economic program, but if you want a prestigious economic program at Kansas State University, you would go to their economic agriculture program, which they specialize in because they have one of the best agricultural program in the world. So they combine both of these programs. Maybe it would be a good question for that department. I will see if I could reach out to one of my friends there. What alternative exists to cover such a shortfall? Domestic production, substitute, input, stockpile, or rationing? And what is the feasibility and lead time of each? If you're talking about alternatives to what exactly, I'm not sure, but here's my opinion. Everything that you are used to having coming from abroad is meant to break the seasons that you're used to having in the United States. So we pay top dollar for people in Egypt to farm us strawberries during the winter so they can ship it to us and so we can have fresh strawberries during the winter in the United States and in Europe, right? Now that's a foreign product coming from a foreign country during the winter, during a time that's not a season. All of these type of things that we are used to come during a season or off season from abroad will have to come to a pause or will have to be affected dramatically within the next month or so or 2 months. Once that happens, you will start understanding the importance of season food, meaning each season you have different fruits and vegetables, and that's the only time you get to have that fruit and vegetable unless you freeze it or pickle it, right? Or dry it. So you're gonna have to do few things. You're gonna have to rely on your community to do community farming. Build if you are in places where it snows, you need to have greenhouses at places that exist in the city. You need to build community reliance on local community farming. That is very important. Why is it important, Wajid? The more we are disconnected from the big economy or the big infrastructure or the big corporation that has the oligopolies, the least affected that we are from these markets. So foreign if we're having a foreign shipment of strawberries and all that sudden, I'm just giving an example, all of a sudden that shipment is done and you have a greenhouse, you can plant a strawberry in the greenhouse during the winter. That's just an example out of nowhere. It doesn't have to be true, but I'm just bringing in a point. We need to be independent from the oligopoly that exists in our country because we don't have a capitalistic economy at this point. We need to find ways to barter with each other rather than buy and sell from each other. Everyone has some sort of skill and knowledge and something, and everyone needs something from someone else. The more likely that we provide goods and services to each other based on bartering techniques, the less likely that you can get affected by these types of shortages. And it will give you access, meaning additional money that you have not wasted in groceries, for example, to spend on something else that you need. Additionally, having solar panels and renewable energy for each individual person. It's a very expensive solution, and I think it could be picked up by neighborhoods instead of a household. So each neighborhood would agree that they would collect some sort of money and start putting solar panels on the houses in these neighborhoods. What does that do, Ajay? Well, when oil runs low, or when we have shortages on coal production or oil production, or we need that oil for our jet fuel, or we need the oil for our cars, or we need that gas for something else, right? When we find alternative use for that energy source, we are saving that other source, we're saving this other commodity that we need for our other resources. So we are being strategic on the way we are spending on how we are consuming our resources. So finding alternative solutions for what we ever we have is the best solution that we can give to each other. I think that um, mutual aid is misunderstood. Mutual aid is not communism, it's not socialism. It's the oldest system that humans have had to stand up shoulder to shoulder to make ends meet. Before electricity was a thing, before cities were a thing, as long as humans have existed, they have depended on their community to stand up. And sadly, since we are, sadly, since the West is so focused on individualism and doesn't want to find a balance between individualism and society, we end up putting a lot of focus on my importance first and then my community, rather than my community supports me. If I have a good base that I could stand on, if anytime I fall, I'm not dropping 10 other people because the community foundation is so solid that the community can pick me up and help me back. That's why you see Middle Eastern families and tribes being able to take care of things very well, or Southeast Asia or Asian families. You think all of the businesses in the United States from these Asian families come from one person? No. I don't know if you know this, but tribes in poor countries collect money and then they send their smartest, hardworking kids to the United States or Europe and open a business, a gas station, a restaurant. Uh, Not all of them, but many. Some sort of business. And they collect that money. They take what's necessary to eat, and they send the rest back home to feed their family. Why? Because they created a foundation, even in their home country, but they're expanding. They're creating an empire. This is what each community needs to be doing. You need to be building communities. You need to be looking at them as empires rather than something that exists that you have to deal with. Yes, communities are annoying, they make noises, but guess what? As soon as they're gone, you're going to miss them. That's just the price of having a community. And when you don't have a community, and someone fails, they end up being a burden on everyone else, including the governmental system. And that's how we have a whole bunch of houseless people. And that's how we have a bunch of empty homes. And that's how we have a bunch of empty malls. And none of them are being used to house these houseless people. We need to come together. We need to say that we are going to find ways to stop spending money that does not go between us. I don't know if you know this, but when you study economics and you study communities, you study how long does that dollar stay between that community and how long does that dollar take for a corporation to take it away from that community. So like if I am a business owner, instead of I'm a small business and you come to me as a small business, that money comes and stays between our community because you're supporting this small community, you're supporting these small businesses, you're supporting these small bakeries. They end up spending it within the community. They don't end up spending it outside the community. They rarely do. And the more you spend that money within your community, the more likely your community can keep that money. That's why when I talk about oligopolies, it's confusing to people because oligopoly is designed that few businesses owned everything. That's why you see Walmart taking in every city in the country, and it's destroying all the local pop and mom stores. And guess what? When you go to Walmart and spend that money at Walmart and not spend it at your pop and mom local store, yes, you might be getting a cheap product now, but tomorrow, once all of those pop and mom stores close, guess who's going to raise the price? You may be paying a little extra now, but that money's coming back to you rather than if you pay a little cheaper now, that money is never coming back to you. There's a difference. The strategy that they have designed for their economy is meant to suck everything from the middle class. And they study and do strategies of day and night on how do I extract the last penny out of your own pocket. We're dependent on China for many things, not just for the products that they send us, but for natural resources. China produces 90% of resources related to batteries, lithium, and other rare minerals that we use in our technologies. 90%. How do you become independent from that as a country? Education. Invest in your education. We're investing so much money in military. We're not investing anything in our education. You want to save your resources? Invest in your future. You want to save your resources? Invest in your next generation. How are you going to bring out more technology? How are you going to bring out more educate? How are you going to improve your society? How are you going to improve your economy? How are you going to improve anything if you're not investing in your education? Ay, ay, ay. Wajeeh, Israel operation and funding big money in Iran to feed unrest. Is it worth discussing? Also, funding Rubio to advocate Iran war, is it possible? I could definitely see. Uh, the question is basically that Israel is spending so much money to create unrest inside of Iran. Is that possible, and is it worth discussing? Yes, it's worth discussing. And not only Israel did that, the United States also tried to woo the Kurds to join this war. The Kurds, fortunately, have enough experience dealing with the Israelis and Americans to know that any promises that they make end up not delivering on. The Kurds were promised over and over again for their own independent Kurdistan from the other regional countries in the Middle East, and they have been supplied with weapons, and they have been asked to fight many different governments, many different regimes, many different terrorist organizations over the last, what, 20, 30 years. And they have sacrificed many of their men and women on the battlefield, only to get nothing in return. So that has failed in terms of convincing the Kurds to fight the Iranians and fight the and try to create the change of government. The Iranian people, there is a really large number of Iranians that are against the Iranian government. Don't take me wrong, but the Israeli attacks on Iran is and the American attacks on Iran is not helping America. It's only making it harder for the for these anti Iranian sentiment to decrease as a war on a country makes nationalism increases. Even if you hate your current government or your current system, no one wants to see the destruction of the Iranian people or the Iranian infrastructure or the Iranian economy. Iranian people were struggling economically before this war started. Nevertheless, during this war, the Iranian people don't have all the resources that they need, whether it's their infrastructure, whether their economy, whether it's their um, planes, everything that they have is decaying and they don't have the best economy. And there's a large amount of corruption happening within the Iranian government. That has affected even the water flow system in Iran. I don't know if you know this, but if you really are strategic and smart enough and want to destroy the rest of Iran, you would target their water system. Because even though Iran is supposed to be wealthy in water, uh, years, decades, the last 30, 40 years of Iranian ruling with corruption and mishandling of water management has resulted in a severe drought in the whole in all of the country. So realistically, you can put a lot of pressure on Iran just using their water system, not even, touching the economy. But uh, the Iranian people, when you target innocent life, they become against you. They don't become with you, even if they're against their own government. Let us acknowledge and discuss the Israeli international peace movement. Tell me more about that. What are you talking about? I don't have a current GoFundMe. Maybe I did. Um, oh yes, I remember the GoFundMe. Um, I don't remember who needed money the other day, but people went out and supported the GoFundMe. They needed immediate money and release, and they shared it in the previous threads. I forgot who it was. But if you like, uh, we'll talk about it later. But all I was saying is that we are a community that likes to stand one by another and like to work with each other to make a difference. So that's the type of community that we have. Oh my God. Someone is saying that there was allegations that I said that Malcolm is losing paid subscribers because he is paid by Israel and because his continued support for alliance with. Nope, never mentioned any of that. I think everyone here knows exactly what I say on this, and everything is recorded. You're welcome to go to yesterday's live stream. You might have to pay the $35 membership, but yesterday live stream had nothing to criticize with uh, Malcolm. Yeah, I don't think you received the correct information. Thomas, we have been working to try to talk to strangers about buying pantry goods and important medicine, water, and solar chargers. Half of the people respond said it yet? Do you think we could do a special event with a paramedic to-do list? What is this regarding, Thomas? I'm kind of confused. But regarding strangers, could I would appreciate if you could elaborate actually before I answer the question. People are not prepared. No, people are not prepared. And here's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be creating a community. And creating a community doesn't go necessarily to, you can reach out to random strangers, but connection is made with one-on-one communication. It's made with making actual contacts, becoming acquaintance, becoming friends, and then moving to um, finding what their values are. And then once you find out what their values are and you see if they match your own values, you can start talking about the common things that you have. And then after you talk about the common things that you have with the values that you share, you can check if they understand. Most likely, 99% of the time, they're going to be complaining about the current economy. Number one. So you can take advantage of the fact that they're complaining about the current economy. And then once they're talking and complaining about the current economy, you could bring up, we are trying to bring attention to the situation, or not even say this. All you can say is that we're trying to negate the effect of the current economy on our community. And we're thinking the solution for that is by creating a family neighborhood, by creating trainings for our community to do basic medicine, by training our community to get involved with each other and start working and with each other. It doesn't go to just random strangers right away. And the other thing is that um, you should have, slogans that, bring the message across. You need stuff like uh, rich versus the poor type stuff. You need less, regardless of party lines, let's like make this something that we can survive, or let's get through this together. Let's get through this hard economy together, regardless of what faith, what economic class you're in, what political party you come in. Slogans like that that can show that you are safe person to be approached rather than just reaching out. It takes a little bit more work. It takes a little bit more planning, but you want to make it seem almost like a coincidence, but it's not a coincidence. And Malcolm always says coincidence take a lot of planning. I know you would not have said that. Two different people on today's podcast made those comments. I'm sure they're probably fake or, yep, they are. You have been serious situation and there's no help when everyone isn't struggling with water. The other thing you can check out is you can start connecting with the grassroots organizers that you have in your city. Um, you don't need necessarily to join their product, their project, but collaborating with them, supporting them, working with them helps you build that network that you need of connections and communications, whether it's with the city, whether it's with other organizers. They can give you tips, they can give you areas, they can give you locations, they can give you names, they can give you many things. Now, grassroots organizers, we have our way of vetting people. We do agitation, and that is when we find out what is your real metal is, meaning what is the real quality of you as a person. We test your character, we test your judgment, we test your abilities to find out whether you are capable of helping us running this project, whether you are a person fit for our project, not every person that comes along gets to be an organizer. Many people can be served, many people can be helped, but not everyone can become an organizer. Not everyone is allowed to become an organizer because you're dealing with people's lives, you're dealing with confidential information, you're dealing with political parties and power that don't want you to be successful sometimes. You're dealing with some people that want to infiltrate work that you do that to corrupt it. There's so much shit that we deal with on a regular basis, and that you don't take everyone as an organizer. That's just not how you deal with it. So there is structure, there's base. I will talk to a grassroots organizer that I know to see if she would be willing to do grassroots training, that is willing to do grassroots training, uh, so we can, have a better conversation, or a better understanding of what we mean by, grassroots organizing, what we mean by, uh, uh, what we mean by, I forgot what I was going to say. Anyways, the pain is distracting me. Agitation. What do I mean by agitation? Agitation is something you use after you become friends with someone. You don't use it with someone you don't know. Anytime you have clothes, right? And and it's dirty, you put it in the washer. The washer fills up with water. You put some soap. The friction that happens between the water, soap, and the clothes is agitation. It removes the stuff that's on the surface so you can see the actual end product. Whether that's you're polishing jewelry or whether you're cleaning clothes. That's agitation. With that tool, that's a technique that we use. We don't put you in the washer, we don't put chemicals on you, but we test your abilities. We test who you really are. If we see something in you that we think we could probably improve, or if we see something wrong that we want to confront, and we confront you with it, by the way, such and such. Like for me, when I was starting, I'm from Saudi Arabia. I come from a male run society. I come from a male dominated society where you can smell testosterone outside the door before you enter the room, with a room full of men. So everyone is there walking like I'm a lion. I'm in charge. I'm in control. I need to say what I have to say so my word could be heard by everyone. The problem when you do that in grassroots organizing, right, is everyone on the table or sitting on the table, like on the round table, is trying to achieve the same goal of social justice, is trying to achieve the same goal of fighting corruption, is trying to achieve the same goal of making ends meet or improving the economy. So when you understand that everyone else is on the same table, is on the same side, and has the same purpose, you need to step back. You need to know how much space you're taking inside the room, and that was my problem. I was taking a lot of space in the room. So I had people sit down with me. Wajeeh, you have amazing ideas. You're one of the smartest people on the project, but we need you to learn how much space you take in a room because everyone in that room has amazing ideas. Everyone in that room has some of the best training. Everyone in that room has different privileges. If you're a black woman versus A man that's perceived as a white guy that came from a male run society that thinks that he can take or claim anything. So you have to recognize your privilege. So the agitation that I had was regarding finding my privilege, even though I'm a person of color, right? And recognizing how that privilege plays out in a grassroots organizing setting, and understanding that I need to work on the space that I take in a room and how much talking I do in a room when everyone has something to say. That was an example of an agitation I had to face when I was starting as a grassroots organizer. And the way it happened, it was made different people from that knew me and I knew them, and we were not only on knowing on a mutual basis. No, we were very good friends. You don't do this with a random person in the street. If you meet a random person in the street and you agitate them, they say, "Fuck off! Who the fuck are you? I don't even know who they. I don't even know who you are." So when you do agitation, you do it with people you trust, you do it with people you love, you do it with people that you know that you're going to be seeing if you can take them to the next step. That's why understanding the principles of grassroots organizing is essential. And at this point, I think it would be a good idea for me to reach out to certain people in my network to see if they would be willing to do that type of training, because I think this would be a good next step for our community. So keep an eye on that. We'll figure it out and we'll get that going. By the way, if you like this type of content, give me some love. Hit those heart buttons at the bottom right. I really appreciate it. Share this live stream today. Is free. It's not for paid subscribers or premium members. If you're not a paid subscriber or premium member, please consider becoming one. It helps us pay the bills, keep the lights on so we could do this full time and you don't have to do it full time. I love doing this type of education, but if you're without your support, I can't do it. And recently in the last month, support has dwindled heavily, actually. Um, in fact, it's not Malcolm. He's not the only one losing paid subscribers. I'm also losing paid subscribers. So I don't think that criticism works for the when I saw that comment about someone me complaining that the reason Malcolm is losing subscribers is because of his alliances with Israel, because that's very funny because I'm also losing paid subscribers. So I hope you guys consider becoming a subscriber. It really helps us a long way. If you cannot afford becoming a paid subscriber, support us on YouTube. It pays without you having to pay. Like, comment, share, and subscribe there because it helps us more than you think. YouTube does pay. Well, yeah, and I can't expect people, and if you can't afford to becoming a paid member, just send me a message with the email that you have and we'll give you a premium membership on the house. The only reason we're asking people to pay so we can afford doing this type of work. It's not to make you pay something that you can't afford. So if you are able, please consider becoming a paid subscriber. If you cannot become a paid subscriber, send me a message in my DM with the email associated with your account, and I'm happily glad to give you a premium membership on the house. It gives you the same they give you the same privileges of a paid membership. Waji, I knew you would not have said that. Oh yeah, I already read that. We've been in a serious situation and there's no help when everyone is in a struggle with water, etc. First, you need to be prepared for yourself. Yes, you need to start with yourself. You're absolutely correct, Thomas. Thomas, you start by figuring, well, like, how are you trying to teach others before you teach yourself? You need to become an expert on the topic, right? You need to be able to become good enough with the information that you have. So good enough to the point where you can teach someone else what you just have learned. So if you haven't come to the point where you can teach someone, stay at what you're doing, focus on yourself, work on making that difference. We'll work on getting you guys some training here so you can start learning how to prepare for stuff like this. I'll start working on my contact and seeing what I could do. But that's one of the things that you can start with is start on your personal collection. Start on your own survival gear. Like, do I have a basic survival tourniquet, for example? Do I know how to use a tourniquet? Do I know how to use a CPR? Do I know how to? Do I have a Red Cross certification? Some of those basic things you need to start taking, and then you will need to get certified, especially if it's connected to, uh, like, for example, CPR. You can't teach someone else CPR unless you are certified to teach them CPR. Otherwise, you could be teaching them something old that doesn't work anymore, or you would be teaching it wrong where someone wouldn't be didn't learn how to apply it right. So certain things like that, you either need to get a certification to train or either certification to learn how to do it yourself. And knowing the difference between which one you want to do makes a big part in planning your training. And then there's different types of emergency training. There's tourniquet training, there's CPR training, there's uh um oh my God, what is it? There's something for kids, something for cars, different stuff. But the trainings are plenty. If you're in a college, many colleges provide them or universities provide them in a discounted prices. Or if you have kids in school, the schools usually provide them at discounted prices. Find out if your kids have those programs available for them to take during the summer. It's worth the money. You'd never know when it comes handy. And then there is emergency disaster training, but it has to deal with someone that deals with threat assessment, disasters, and places you can evacuate to. Where luckily in the United States have been isolated from 99% of the wars, right? Most of the wars that the United States have been involved in did not have any domestic attacks, which resulted in the only time you hear the siren is when you think there is a storm coming. Well, while countries in the Middle East and Europe, they hear sirens and they don't know if it's a bomb or they don't know if it's a a storm, or sometimes they only think it's a bomb, or some countries don't even have sirens. But the reality of the matter is that you are not used to an exit plan, whether it is for a natural disaster or a war disaster, and knowing your exit plan, knowing your where you're supposed to go to, knowing where the shelters are, can save your lives and can come in very handy. Yeah, I have 3 gallons of water just sitting at home for an emergency. Anytime an emergency happens, we don't touch it unless it's an emergency. What do you mean by agitation? I already did this. I am ashamed of myself. Someone who keeps up an event in the Gulf doesn't annoy you when Western media paints any speaker and hostilities as of. Listen, someone is asking, as someone who keeps up on events in the Gulf, doesn't it annoy you when Western media paints any speakers and hostilities as a breach by Iran when it's actually a response to an Israeli or American attack? Each media is supposed to protect its national interest strategy, but in Western countries or in democracy, media is supposed to put a light on the story itself, regardless of which side it's on. And the reality of the situation is that media in the West has been owned and run by the 1% since the beginning. They are tycoons. They are oligopolies. They are full of rich people that have their own personal interests. They're connected to the Epstein files. They're connected to the foreign countries. Fox is owned, one third of Fox is owned by Saudi prince. I don't know if you know that. Prince Walid bin Talal. Prince Walid bin Talal also owns like 10 or 20% of Twitter before Elon Musk bought it, and he still owns a big part of Twitter. Um, the Western influence on these media or any influence is there. And unfortunately, the news channel does not have the everyday person interest at heart. It has only the rich people interest at heart. So when we are witnessing the TV mostly talk about the Middle East, with few exception of few journalists that really understand the ins and outs and really explain the details. All I see is a bunch of people summarizing a problem and bringing a solution that's simpler than the simplified problem that they have brought up. With that brings in a more complicated solution. No, a simple solution that doesn't solve a complicated problem and that we end up in a more complicated issue, and thus the constant struggle that we see. We have Americans that constantly get misinformed and don't have their questions, their real questions answered, and end up with actual fear because their questions weren't answered. Then they fill these questions with their own answers, coming up with phobias against the Middle East and coming up with their own opinions against the Middle East. Now that we have social media and many people that can speak on their own, like myself, that can represent the Middle East, when we come out and we answer these questions, I think we do better present the representation for Middle Eastern news and Middle Eastern culture on these platforms like Substack on YouTube than actual news media. And when I appear on news media and I say the truth, many times what they do, they pause the whole show. Sorry, sir, we can't have you say that. The other day, a few years back, I was on Al Hurra TV, an American channel in Arabic. And the guy that I was debating, he was calling me a faggot, basically. And he was from Oman. And the Omani Sultan, the one before this one, was widely known for not only being gay, for being a pedophile, right? So I said on the TV, so you have a problem with my faggot ass, but you don't have a problem with your Sultan faggot ass. And the whole show came to a pause. The whole show came to a pause. You can't speak truth to the media for some reason. You can't speak truth to the media. Some people will hear you, other people can't hear it. They're like, we have to cut that off. I'm like, you ain't cutting it off. They're like, yeah, yeah, we have to. The there was like three debaters, two of them pulled out, one of them stayed. That's like the reality, though. I have to put in a check, even in Arabic news media. It's not only your American news media, it's the problem with the media. They are looking for clicks. They're looking for baits. They're looking for people that bring the worst opinions or the craziest opinions because that's what brings them the news. Yeah, you're right about the 2 points. Here in the UK, for the last 2 years, we had national emergency alerts through an alarm alert and all on our phone meant to warn us of any threats. This was prompted by the threats we received increasingly from Russia. Do you in the US have a national alert system as well? We have multiple types of alert systems. Some of them work and some of them don't work. Um, and the greatest example of that is when they work, they give us good predictions and we can evacuate people early from danger zones like the natural disasters. And when they don't work, they end up with a lot of fatality in the United States. And it just depends on who's sitting on the computer. And and sometimes we send the wrong. Sometimes we send the like a wrong alarm by a mistake. I don't know if you know this, but a few years back or in the last 10 years, there was an incident where we almost shot a nuclear weapon because it's really stupid. I don't know if this is the actual story or someone was telling it to me or how true this is. I don't remember how true it is, but I thought I heard something about the United States almost shooting a nuclear weapon because there was a software they were testing for what happens if Russia shoots a weapon and we were like running some tests or something and the system thought that Russia was actually shooting a real missile or something. We were getting so close to shooting it, but the system, they were like, check the system, check the system. They were checking the system back and forth. And you don't have a lot of time to respond when a nuclear weapon gets shot. You have a specific period of time. And this can result in huge disasters for the world that we live in. But even if that's not true, that's the type of yeah, wasn't that in Hawaii? It was something like that. Malcolm told that story. So okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. Okay. So we've come close to that stuff because of these systems that we have and uh a false alarm. Yes, Hawaii did have a false alarm. I'm glad I'm not crazy. So shit like that happens and our system is not the best, if I would say it to that. Thank you for highlighting this. Not everyone in Israel is on board with the government. Do you think the media paints all Israelis in a negative light? Do you think this creates more anti the democratic Jewish sentiments? Yes, yes, and I have more to say about this. Not everyone is on board in Israel. A lot of Israelis are being hit and beaten by the Israeli government for protesting Israel's actions. But not enough Israelis are taking action. I'm gonna be very honest. There's many innocent Israelis that are against this war and they are being oppressed by the Israeli government for this war. But if anyone needs to take responsibility and stand against its own government, it's the Israeli people. And I think the media will start paying attention the larger the anti-war sentiment and the higher we see uh, what we call um, what do we call it in civil disobedience. That's the word. Civil disobedience. If enough Israelis have too much, most Israelis have too much to lose, right? A lot of Israelis are dual citizens. A lot of Israelis do not agree with this war. Then you need to get out and do civil disobedience. You need to get out and show the world that you disagree with the war. The reality is the Netanyahu action and the far right government actions have shifted majority of the world opinion against Israel. Majority of the kids, majority of the people who have been standing on the side of Israel are in a situation today where they're like, I I served in Israel for the military. I can't support this shit. You got to the point where you have people who are pro-Israel going like, I remember when you guys were trying to kill terrorists, but your guys' the videos are showing you killing babies. Like, what do you do when you donate money to the uh world's uh world's kitchen that's run by the Spaniard guy? When I donate money to the when I donate money to the world's kitchen and you go and hit the world kitchen that's just serving food. What do I do when I see you hitting water desalination plants? My phone is almost dead. I have to switch the mic. I'm back. Let's see here. I had to switch the phone. Good thing I have two phones. But now I won't be able to see your comments on the live on my chat. Oh, maybe I could. Give me 1 second. I have the iPad here. Oh yes, here you go. So, what do I think about the Israelis? I think the Israelis need to do a lot more. I think that you need. Can you guys see me just fine now? Echoes. There shouldn't be any echo. What will it take to stop Netanyahu? The Israelis need to come out and stop Netanyahu themselves. That's what I was trying to say. Israelis, is it better now? There is a distinction between Jews and Zionists. Yes, there is. I'm not talking about Jews. I'm talking about Israelis. Israelis are not Jews only. There's a lot of people living in Israel, and a lot of people are against what Israel is doing. But Israelis need to stop the Israeli government. As simple as that. As simple as that. Like we don't want anti-Semitism. I'm against anti-Semitism. I have friends, some of my closest friends are Israelis. I've been invited to go to Israel. I have been invested in creating some sort of peace dialogue between the Israelis and the rest of the Muslim world. But that doesn't help me to help you. How do you want the world to advocate for peace between the Muslims and the Israelis, or the Arab and the Israelis? And you Israelis are allowing Israel to commit all these crimes. Help me help you. Help me help you. You can't, the world can't help you, Israel, cannot be on your side as a country as you're committing these crimes. Many like to call it genocide, many call it ethnic cleansing. I call it crimes on humanity. So help me, help you become, have peace with your neighboring country. You attacking Iran, you attacking your neighboring countries does not bring peace, does not make us want to sign the Abrahamic Accord. It just makes us see that you have a conspiracy theory against the Arabic world. That's all it does. Help us, help you. You need to stop the Israeli government, not from outside, from within Israel. The Israelis need to move themselves. We can sit down here and put laws and regulations on Israel. We can criticize Israel. Our government is complicit. It doesn't know how to put checks and balances on our own country. How do we expect to put checks and balances on Israel? So, what do? We demand Israelis take action. We can call our senators and representatives. We can vote for whoever is coming next. Yes, yes, let's do that. Everyone has already mentioned that. I'm not going to repeat everything that's already been mentioned. No, I'm going to give you the source of the problem, and I'm going to give you the source of the solution. The source of the solution is within Israel. The IDF is pretty scary. You don't hear much from Russians either. Don't you think it is very easy to say, get out and protest against your government when they are so cruel? You don't have to convince me. I know how cruel governments are. But supposedly Israel is a democracy. Supposedly Israel has freedom of speech. When I'm talking about Russia or when I'm talking about Saudi Arabia, right? And I'm sure that I know that the Israel government will be crazy, but I'm saying where the solution is laying. The solution is not in my hand. The solution is not in your hand. The solution is in the hands of the Israeli people. That's my first point. I'm saying where the solution is at. Number two, I have lost friends and family to dictatorships. I have lost friends and families to oppressive regimes. Some of them were executed. Some of them were tortured to death. So I personally take it very serious when I ask people to protest, especially against oppressive regimes. But between the Palestinians and the Israelis, the one that should protest is the Israeli. When we talk in the United States about who should be protesting the Trump administration, grassroots organizers are saying people of colors, immigrants, should not put their life on the line and should not go to protest. Why? Even though they should be, but why? Because they're the first to be targeted. Because the regime is more harsh and torturing toward people of color in the United States toward versus white people. So you're seeing white grassroots organizers and saying, please, people of color, step aside, let us take the action now. And you're seeing people of color who are grassroots organizer are saying, get out, you white people, and protest your white government that has been taking our rights away. Let me give you a different example. When I'm talking to Muslims who are moderate and who are trying to convince me that Islam is a religion of peace, the religion of love, I'm like, why are you trying to convince me that? Especially like when I'm criticizing far right Islamist extremists, right? I'm like, hold on, you're a moderate Muslim, right? Because yeah, I'm a moderate Muslim. Like, why don't you go as a moderate Muslim and try to convince the far right extremist Muslim that's been calling for my death and tell them that they're wrong? They're not going to listen to me. Why would they listen to me? By what hand should they listen to me when I'm not even part of the group? You want to convince me that Islam is moderate? Go convince whoever is convinced that I am an infidel and I deserve the death penalty. You go convince them that they're wrong. It's the other way around. It's the other way around. If a Palestinian goes to an Israeli and goes, you Israelis have been oppressing me, what does the Israeli going to do? Get fuck off. But when an Israeli goes to another Israeli and say, you are taking the rights of a Palestinian, how does that sound? That sounds different. That sounds different. That hits right. So take responsibility. People in Israel need to step up. Now, I'll give you a different example. Saudi Arabia is an oppressive country. We have a, we have an oppressive regime, but they're nicer than others. Okay, they're nicer than others. But we have modern slavery, right? So, as a Saudi who is considered to be a subject, part of the a property of the Saudi government, right? When I see someone who is considered to be in modern slavery and I see that they're oppressed, Should I ask them to protest the Saudi government, or should I protest the Saudi government for the way that these slaves are being treated? Which one should it be? Could you tell me? Should I ask the slave to go advocate for himself against the dictatorship? Should I ask the slave to go create a union? Should I ask the slave to use money he doesn't have to hire a lawyer that won't do anything for him? That's the same exact ideology. It's the same exact tactic. Who is in power to do what? So, Israelis would be putting their life on the line. Yes, that's the point of a protest. Israelis would be doing civil disobedience against one of the harshest countries in the world. In fact, our police system in the United States is fully and highly trained by the Israeli government that is teaching the U.S. military and, the U.S. police to treat us as Palestinians. That's why we have such a high death rate in our military and our police system. They treat us all like Palestinians here in the United States. In fact, I would argue police officers have more right than any senator or any representative out in the street. They can shoot someone and get away with it. And in fact, if they get fired, they get hired somewhere else. I'm not criticizing, I'm not saying in the police. This is not the argument I'm making right now. I'm just explaining to you why our people are so mean against us. Because we asked the Israelis to train them. So I understand and I know how oppressive the Israeli government is. They have taught our government to be oppressive against us. But Israelis need to take action. You can't expect us in America protesting the Israeli government and then the Israeli government doing shit about it. They're not going to do shit about it. You know, I think I talk a lot about cancellation culture. In our society, we don't give people a second chance to become good people. I think we should have a program where we allow police officers that have done horrible things or no longer want to be part of the this program that they are oppressing people in. We should have a program for them to get rehabilitated, get educated, and join society without oppressing everyone else. And instead of isolating them and making them more extremist. Because every time we fire them and we send them somewhere else, right? What they end up doing is the same mistake that they have done, maybe even worse. So I think we should we should have our own rehab for police officers from stopping to becoming police officers and becoming part of the community without having to oppress everyone else. We do a lot of talking about cultural training, educational training. I was a consultant for the police one time because I was sick and tired of the police spying on my Muslim community. I was like, hold on, what's making you spy on my community every Friday? Why are you sending an FBI agent? Why are you sending us a police officer that's not even a Muslim to our masjid every Friday? We don't feel safe by you being there. We didn't even invite you over. They're like, well, we are afraid of actions that we do not see or we do not expect or whatever. I said, that's all? He said, yeah. I said, you go to church? I said, I go to church. I said, do you have friends at church? He goes, I have friends at church. I'm talking to the police chief now. In church, when something or someone in that church sees something wrong, in the community, in the neighborhood, or in the city, do they call 911 or do they call you? They say, no, they call me. So, exactly. Do you have that type of relationship with the Muslim community? Do you have friends inside the Muslim community? If they see something wrong, they call you? They say, no. So, did you try to make friends with the Muslim community? No. Well, let me fix that. I'll fix that for you. I created an ambassadorship between the police and the Muslim community. I created some dinner events to create some sort of relationship between the leadership of the police and the leadership of the Muslim community because I was sick and tired of them sending police officers to spy on my Muslim community. And that relationship was created. And thankfully now that has changed. That has changed. But we need to create the change and we need to create a backdoor for people to escape and we need to allow if we're realistic about working with the current regime that we have we need to allow some back channels, we need to allow some strategic work, but also we need to be very careful. We need to do our own agitation. We need to do our own screening. We don't let everyone in. We choose and we identify the class of person, not class economics class, but the class of person that we're talking about. Is this person an ally? Is this person a friend? Or is this person an acquaintance? That changes the equation dramatically from the type of the information that you share to the type of collaboration that you have. You have to know who you're talking to. You don't consider the police an ally, you consider the police someone that you have to work with every once in a while. I was a consultant for the police because I had to. You think people call the police because they don't have to? Some people do. Privileged people do. But we end up having calling 911 when we have a heart attack. We end up calling 911 when we have a fire. The both of these are not the police, by the way. They collaborate with the police. And many people fear calling the police, even though they're getting robbed, even though they're getting stabbed, even though they're getting shot. Does that make sense? In what country you are the victim and you fear calling the police? In what democracy I'm supposed to feel like I have to wear a bulletproof vest going to a Walmart or going to college or going to high school? So much, so much doesn't make sense. So much that doesn't make sense. And if you say it doesn't make sense, you're considered an enemy. I'm just a reasonable person that sees something that doesn't make sense, and I will say, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that a failed state like Yemen is considered the second most militarized, most armed country in the world after the United States. The United States has more weapons per capita than they have people per capita. The United States has more people, weapons per person than we have people per capita. I mean, however you want to say it in English, I don't remember. You have a failed state, and we are above that failed state in terms of numbers per people. Can you imagine? Yemen, a failed state with civil war, where you can buy your own tank, comes right after the United States. So you start putting one to one together. And the military infrastructure wants to make money with the police as well. They're not they haven't had enough with the US military. Whatever that's not sold to the US military, whatever access they have, they end up selling to the US police. In fact, I don't understand why the police in the United States is so dislocalized from there is no national police. The reason I say this is because if a police officer commits a crime in one state, they shouldn't be able and allowed to go and continue serving as a police officer in a different city or a different state. So the police should be federalized in a way or nationalized in a way where a police officer is appointed a location, yes, but is a national registry. And if you are a criminal in one place, you're a criminal everywhere else. If you're a police officer that has done mistakes on your work, it should be everywhere. It shouldn't be just that one state. We need more checks and balance and regulations. We just never want to keep up with that for some reason. We are barely passing our budget bill every year. We don't have people in the Senate that can pass a budget bill. How do you want to put Israel in check? Lord Jesus, help my soul. Let's see if you guys have any other questions. I hope that my opinions that if it doesn't offend you, you don't have to take my opinion for like as a religious word or anything. It's just someone that views things from a different lens, looking into the problem and seeing things that doesn't make sense. And I'm just pointing it out. I'm just pointing it out. I see a lot of people with a lot of emotions, and it is a very hard time. But we need to find love and compassion for one another. We need to be recruiting each other rather than beating each other. We need to find what's in common between us with humanity rather than what divide us. It is possible to do that. Our country was designed to welcome immigrants from everywhere. Our country became great because of the working people that came from across the world. Our country doesn't have a clear record, and being honest about that only makes us better. Facing our history and facing our conflict and facing our mistakes doesn't make you a bad thing and doesn't make you weak. It only shows the mistakes that you have had that you can improve on. So I did talk to Mama Kay. She is busy this week or was busy last week. We are planning on scheduling a Zoom call. Maybe we'll have that soon. So keep your eyes open. We have exceeded almost we're going into 2 hours essentially. So I'm gonna take a minute, go take my meds and have my breakfast and start my day. But while you're there, take a minute to support my account on Substack. Take a minute to support my account on YouTube. So you can also follow me on Instagram. It's all the same name, Wajeeh Lion. It doesn't change. I'm verified on all of these accounts. We need your support. We need to expand our community. And the only way it happens is one person at a time. I'm not expecting that this change would happen in a month or two. I'm not expecting this change to happen in a year. But as long as we're building a community that's focused on difference, that's focused on change, that's focused on improving our world, we are going to find the right people because those people exist and they exist in billions. They don't exist in millions. So we take it one day at a time and we'll find our people. Appreciate you. Like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you next time. Okay.